Welcome to the Develop Yourself podcast, where we teach you everything you need to land your first job as a software developer by learning to develop yourself, your skills, your network, and more. I'm Brian, your host. Hey, just for the record, I don't hate tutorials at all, okay? Let's get that clear and out of the way first. But I am a huge proponent of building side projects. In fact, I know that they're really the only way to become a software developer. You can go through every single exercise on Codecademy. You can do every single exercise on Scrimba.com. You can do all these different tutorial style programs. You can do a 100-hour YouTube video, and you will not be a software developer by the end of that video, that course, that certificate, and no one will hire you. Does that sound harsh? I really hope not, but what I want to drive home to you is that the only way to mastery is to build stuff. I want to break down 4 projects specifically for people that want to learn JavaScript, because this is super important. This is the stage where you're most likely getting sidetracked by all these tutorials and people telling you just build this random thing and you copy and paste it, or you type what they type and then you watch it more, and then you type and they type and you type and they type. And at the end of it, you have this nice shiny project and you don't even know how the hell it works. You want to avoid that. You don't want to do that, right? I'm going to break down 4 projects only. And I have a little challenge for you as a special, exceptionally good-looking person that is in the show notes. I know a few things about the listeners of this show. 1, they're generally smart. And I'm serious about that. I genuinely mean that. I've spoken to a lot of you out there, and I'm always impressed by the people that talk to me, that schedule the calls. Always super smart. Really enjoy those calls, by the way. 2, they're usually career changers, meaning they're not like students or below the age of 25 most of the time. They're usually in a career. They've usually been in a career for a bit, and they realize they want to make a change. 3, I'm just guessing they're pretty good looking. I don't really know, right? I mean, hey, what do I know? If you're smart and you like JavaScript, chances are you're probably a stud or a hot chick or whatever. Hey, I hope you're enjoying this episode, and if you're interested in becoming a software developer, learning how to build complex software, and actually get hired, join me at Parsity.io. If you're serious about joining, just schedule a call with me by clicking the link in the show notes below. So these projects that I'm going to break down, I hope that they make things that are generally conceptual seem much more practical. Because the biggest issue I see with people learning JavaScript, and whether they've come into Parsity or I talk to them through the phone chats I do, is that they think, when am I going to use this in real life, quote unquote? It's kind of like when people learn data structures and algorithms, and they're like, when am I going to use this? Like, what's the point of this? Which is why I suspect that a lot of people learn things like Python to start off with, and they'll learn these general programming concepts like how to do an if-else statement, how to declare a variable, how to do like basic writing of code that serves some random purpose, but it doesn't get them closer to being a software developer. Because what do we do with code? We create sites, web apps, applications, backend services that hold data. We do real life stuff with them. I mean, everything you do on a daily basis is basically facilitated by some software that a bunch of nerds wrote somewhere else, right? They didn't copy and paste it for the most part. I mean, we do a lot of copying and pasting, but they had to build something that was actually useful. So if you're learning about arrays and if-else statements, learning them on their own is good because it helps you compose a program later on, but only learning them and not learning how to actually use them in a practical way is what I think makes people frustrated and just kind of think, well, I don't really get this, and maybe this isn't for me. Because JavaScript is really the first mountain of despair that you will hit in your career as a software developer. Because you're going along, you learn HTML and CSS, you make a little button, and you add a little color to it, and it looks good. And you're like, whoa, this is kind of cool, right? If you're not at that stage, get to that stage. HTML and CSS, go on Codecademy or something like that, and learn a little bit of HTML and CSS. That's really important. And you're feeling good when you can do that stuff because you get that immediate visual feedback. You get that cue, which is so important because it gives you that dopamine hit that your body craves. It's how you build the coding habit. You do something, you kind of struggle, you see the results of that thing, and you feel happy. And you're like, I want to do more of that. Then comes along JavaScript. And this is where, I don't know, at least half of the people will drop off the map. They'll learn JavaScript and they'll never come back. I don't want that to be you. And the reason they drop off is because they start learning arrays and objects and they think, okay, I made something. I don't even know what I made. And then, What do I do now? Cool. I know an array starts at 0. Do I win a prize now? Do I get the job? No, you don't. So let's start off with what you need to build these projects and not get lost at the mountain of despair. Before you even start thinking about writing any code, you need a few tools. Visual Studio Code. This is non-negotiable. This is what everybody uses. 70% of developers that are professional developers use this tool. So yes, you should use it. Don't use whatever cool new thing some random YouTuber told you to use it because he said VS Code sucks. 2, you need to have Chrome web browser. Why Chrome web browser? It has great dev tools. So if you're on the web, if you go to your favorite web page, your suitable for work web page that you use, and you right click and you go to inspect, a little tab will pop up at the bottom of the screen and you'll see a thing that says elements, console, sources, network, performance, memory, application security, all these things. And what you want to focus on are the elements and console portions of this tab. This will help you debug your code. This will help you inspect the code that is on the screen. This is the standard for developer tools, dev tools. These are really important. In fact, I have these open all the time when I'm debugging and writing code. I only have this closed if I'm on a website that I don't own. If I'm writing code to learn something, I'm going to have it open. I suggest you do too. And lastly, a CodePen account. Because if you're not used to writing code in Visual Studio Code and then opening up that file into your web browser, it can be really easy to get started by just using CodePen, CodePen. Now, without further ado, let's get into these 4 kind of random but really practical projects which are going to help you out. Number 1 is a project that I actually started off with when I was learning how to use JavaScript. I didn't get arrays, really, if I'm being completely honest with you. For loops, arrays, it's kind of embarrassing to admit now, but I didn't really get it. And the web is basically made up of arrays and objects. But before we get into objects, let's focus on arrays. So I like to start off with this pattern for every single task I'm going to do when it comes to learning JavaScript. I get a button on a page, right? And I click on that button and something happens. You need to get that set up. Create a little button using CodePen or VS Code or whatever. Then I want you to add a click event to this button. And if you don't know how to do that, I'm going to give you my way of Googling things. I type in JS plus the thing I want to learn plus example. That will usually lead me to a few good places. Stack Overflow is one of the best resources for looking at code and finding answers to things. So is Mozilla and W3 Schools. And if you're wondering why I didn't say ChatGPT, it's because at this stage, you have to be very careful with how you use ChatGPT because you could become a code bot if you use ChatGPT. Basically, it's a person that types in something to ChatGPT, it spits them out an answer, and they blindly paste it into their editor, and it works. And they think, oh my God, I found the hack. I found the secret to becoming a developer. Everybody else is dumb. I am using big brain activity, and I'm going to beat you all. No, you're not. Because if writing software was that simple, we'd already have ChatGPT taking every single job. That is not the case. We're so far from that reality, it's laughable. That's me laughing at you, ChatGPT. Anyway, we are far from that reality. So don't get fooled into that. You want to learn at this stage how to find answers, how to look at code that's not your own, and then make it your own. So you have this button and you have an event, a click event. You click the button, something happens. Now, in this case, for the random button color, I want you to have an array full of colors, red, blue, green, yellow, all the valid colors that you could make something using CSS, like red, blue, tomato, green, whatever. And when somebody clicks this button, I want the button to turn a random color from that array of colors. That's it. That's literally it. It should just click it and something happens and it turns into a random color from that array. That's it. That's going to teach you about how to iterate over an array. You're going to have to look that up. Well, how do I just pick a random thing from an array? Is there a way to pick a random thing from an array? Of course there is. This should lead you down different little rabbit holes and side quests until you finally figure it out. This is not a step-by-step tutorial and guide. This gives you basically a North Star. It's like you need to get to this state and now you fill in the gaps to get there. The gaps to get here are not much. And this is a really important part of being a developer because most of the problems you encounter have been solved already. You just need to know how to Google to find them, find code that almost fits your use case, and then make it your own to fit exactly the thing you want to do. That is my big beef with tutorials because the person that made the tutorial, including me, because I've made a lot of them, I cut out hours, sometimes like days worth of research and stuff that went into doing it. It wasn't like I just sat down and just went right through it. I had a bunch of WTF moments and freaking out and having to revert what I did and go back and look up things. And I just cut that all out because who wants to see that? It's really boring and really tedious. And I guarantee you, because I've talked with other content creators, we all do the same thing. It's not to hide this stuff from you. Well, in some ways it is, but it's more to make content that's actually appealing, because looking at somebody bumble around for hours is not appealing. That's why you edit stuff out. So you need to go through this process of having a bunch of WTF moments, kind of freaking out, learning, filling in those gaps, and finally getting to the promised land. And this random button color one will hopefully have a few less WTFs than the other ones that I'm going to tell you about. Project number 2. Here's where things get fun. I want you to create an array, and I want that array to have 3 to 5 objects. Those objects should represent people. They should have a name key. They should have an occupation, and they should have an image. And that image should be a URL that you get from somewhere on the web. The easiest way to do that is to type in something like Taco Cat, right-click it, copy the image URL, and then paste it into your object. So 3 to 5 objects, the name, Bob, Sarah, Sally, Jimmy, occupation, pizza boy, carpenter, code monkey, private dancer, whatever. Make these few objects. They should be in an array. Now think about this. Most of what you see on the internet is arrays full of objects. When you go to Instagram and you see all those pictures, they have comments, they have likes, they have similar qualities, similar features. These can be represented by objects because most of what we see are uniform. Think about going to Airbnb. You see a collection of photos that also have ways to like them. They have information about them. They're all uniform. They're all standard. Now, what a web developer will often do is they'll get an array full of these objects, hundreds, thousands, hundreds of thousands of them maybe, and they'll iterate over them. They'll go loop over them one by one by one, and they'll take that information and display it on the screen in a way that looks nice. So they'll take data, they'll handle that data, and they'll make it look palatable, appealing on the screen. You can think of a front-end developer as basically a person that handles arrays of objects. I mean, if you really want to break it down to like really what people are doing on the front end of the web, that's a lot of what we're doing. So now that you have this list of people, this is the challenge. I want you to loop over, to iterate over this list of people. And I want you to create elements on the screen. It should be the image, and under that it should say the name and the occupation of that person. Make it look decent, right? Like add a little bit of styling. How can you do that with JavaScript? How can you create an element with JavaScript? Is that even possible? Well, of course it's possible, but you'll have to figure out how to do that. In this case, I might type in JS plus create element, maybe JS plus create image, JS plus create image plus add a source. These are going to lead you to examples that you can use. Say, okay, that's kind of what I want. By the way, there are at least 5 ways to do this. I can think of actually at least 3 to 5 ways that I can think of off the bat to do this. So there's not one right way to do that. And this again comes to being able to critically think as a developer, because no one's going to hand you the answer and say, here's exactly how you do it. They're going to say, here's what I want high level. They're going to say, I want you to make the screen look like this. It's going to be up to you to kind of fill in the blanks. Again, why tutorials are a little bit dangerous. Now, tutorials are great to get started with, but they are dangerous if your learning stops right there. Because if your learning stops at the tutorial, then you've done a real disservice to yourself, because now you don't know if you could create that thing on your own. And people are only going to pay you to create things on your own. And also, you're just going to have a lot more fun. I mean, what fun is it just watching somebody type all day long? I don't know. It seems kind of lame to me. Project number 3. This is where things take a twist. A fun twist, I hope. Hopefully a fun twist. I actually did this project with a few people that applied for Parsity recently. We met up and did these one-on-ones, which I can't wait to do more of. By the way, if you're thinking about joining Parsity, I am personally working with people that come into the program now to get them ready for the program. I think that's a really important thing to do. It helps me learn more about them and what they want and where their gaps are, and get them in a place where they can really hit the ground running. So really good time to apply. I guarantee you January is going to be packed. So go to parsity.io if you'd like to work directly with me and our team of software developers to change your career in 2025. Anyway, this challenge is fun but difficult. So you have this list of people. They're shown on the screen. Now what I want you to do is add an input element to the screen. It should be like an input where you type in something, right? Like an input box, a text box, essentially, where you type in stuff. And when you type in something, I want it to filter that list by whatever was typed in that box. So for example, if you have a person in your objects with a name of Sally and you type in SAL, it should filter the list to only show people that have SAL inside their name. It should be case insensitive. It should not care about the case. You could have capital S, capital A, capital L, and it will still return you Sally. If you type in pizza boy or private dancer, it should show up whoever is a pizza boy or private dancer. So it should filter by multiple different values, the name or the occupation. And when they type, that's when it should filter. Now, if they erase it, that is when you should see all the people again. That is the hardest part of this, honestly. Try to break this down into small tasks. Think, okay, well, first, what I have to do, I have to make it so when somebody types, I can do something based on that event. The web is based on events and event listeners. So you type in something, you click a button, there's an event that happens. That click event, in this case, a typing event. You can look that up. What is the event you're listening for, and how are you going to react to that event? You're probably going to need to look at whatever's in that text box and then do something to that array full of objects. Filter as a massive hint is probably what you're going to want to do on that array. But how do you keep two arrays? One maybe to keep the pristine version of all your people and one to keep the filtered version. And when do you switch them back? Things get pretty complicated at this point. But if you think about what we do on the web, this is super practical and super common. When you go to a website or you go to Airbnb or plentyoffish.com. Wait, Plenty of Fish is a dating site. I was thinking like of an actual fish site where you could like look up fish. Anyway, you type in something like, cream puffs in some cookie finding site, and it will filter the list by everything that matches cream puffs. Or you go to an e-commerce site, you're buying jeans or something, you type in acid wash and it will filter the list by acid wash jeans. This is super, super common, and learning how to do this is kind of cool because then you can think, oh, that's how this is working. Somebody somewhere had to write code just like this in order to filter this list. Okay, are you ready? Are you ready for this last challenge? This is a doozy, but I think it's fun. We have been using hard-coded data, meaning data that we just wrote ourselves, which is cool, right? There's nothing wrong with that. It's a fun way to get started. But if you go to Airbnb or Instagram or any of the sites that I've been mentioning on the show so far, that data isn't just written by hand by somebody, right? That would be weird, wouldn't it? What they've done instead, almost certainly, is use an API to fetch this data. When you can finally use APIs, which you will by the end of this challenge, it opens up a whole new world. You can use data from all over the place. You can explore different APIs and really take advantage of all the data that's out there for free on the web and begin using it and building all sorts of really, really cool things. So I want you to use the type of code API, JSON placeholder.typeofcode, that's typecode.com/users. Don't worry, that's going to be in the show notes along with the challenge that I said I'd give to you. So we've been using these hard-coded users, these users we made up. I want you to replace that. I want you to just blow it away, erase it. Then I want you to look up how to use window.fetch, the JavaScript fetch method. Look up how to use that. Then figure out how you're going to make a request to this API, the JSON placeholder.typecode.com/users API, that URL, and then it's going to return you something. What it's going to return you is an array full of objects, user objects, but this time it's not owned by us. It's something we got over the web. At a really high level, an API is essentially a URL that will return you some JSON, some JavaScript object notation, arrays full of objects. That's it. When you go on the web, you type a URL, and what do you get back? A web page. In this case, an API doesn't give you a web page. It gives you some data back that you can use. Now, I want you to basically make all that same functionality work where you list the people, you list their images, and you can filter them. But instead of using those objects that we made ourselves, use that API instead. That'll be a really fun project. And very last challenge, the bonus challenge, which is in the show notes of this episode, the form challenge. This is a good one. I also gave this to a few people that are joining Parsity. And by the way, if you complete this form challenge, if you can get through steps 1 and 2, you are certainly ready for Parsity. If you can get through step 3, then you got to call me and we got to talk, because you got to be in Parsity or you got to go somewhere or do something cool. I've given this challenge to a lot of developers who are not new, by the way, and they have failed miserably. This is what I don't want to have happen to you. Too many too many developers skip past JavaScript. They go into React, they start learning all these cool things, and they don't really know how to use JavaScript. This bites them later on because at some point in their career, sooner than later, they're either going to get on the interview a question revolving around vanilla JavaScript, quote unquote vanilla JavaScript, basically just regular JavaScript. It's so funny because now we call it vanilla because no one really writes this kind of JavaScript anymore. We all use React. But sometimes you can't use a thing like React and you need to know this stuff. Maybe you're writing a library. Maybe you're writing code for some really legacy web app or something like that, and you just can't use a cool new tool like React. And if you don't know JavaScript, it's going to be embarrassing. And most of the web is just kind of forms. Think about it. You log into stuff, you create a post on LinkedIn or Instagram or wherever. These are all just basically forms. You post up a house, you apply to something, forms, and more forms. So this form challenge uses vanilla JavaScript, HTML, and CSS, and it has some videos to walk you through a series of challenges, which I know you're going to find difficult. And if you do it, please tag me in it, post it on LinkedIn or Instagram or something like that. Tag me in it. I'd love to see it. I hope more people do this because it can either illuminate some gaps in your knowledge, or maybe it will show you, whoa, I actually know way more than I thought I did. And maybe I'm ready to go into a program like Parsity. Anyway, I hope that was helpful and I hope you enjoyed the form challenge, and I'll see you around. That'll do it for today's episode of the Develop Yourself podcast. If you're serious about switching careers and becoming a software developer and building complex software and want to work directly with me and my team, go to Parsity.io. And if you want more information, feel free to schedule a chat by just clicking the link in the show notes. See you next week.